WNHHLP 103.5 FM, New Haven's home for community radio. I'm Mubarakah Ibrahim, and this is Mornings with Mubarakah, coming from you live from the Beaver Hill section of New Haven, Connecticut, and streaming live on newhavenindependent.org and TuneIn Radio. Thank you for joining me this morning. I am excited about today's show because we've been planning it for a minute. And I have been a secret stalker fan for a minute. So I would like to welcome Darlene to the show. Thank you very much. Thank you. So today we are talking about poetry, spoken word, and its role in our culture and in our activism and in our expression of who we are and telling our story and living in our truth. And we could not have a better person to have this discussion with than Darlene Fernandez, aka TruePoetry. She is the mother of three, author of Broken Silence, entrepreneur, State of Connecticut Beat Poet Laureate of 2018 to 20. She is the president of Make 'em Believe, based in Waterbury, also a curator of many events like Grown and Sexy Poetry, and Poetry Matters. Her passion is to make a difference in community by inspiring others to take action, hoping her words will encourage them and live through them forever. Thank you for joining me.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So I'm really excited because honestly, I have been like watching your videos and your posts and your Facebook friends, and I don't comment on a lot of stuff, but I'll be like,
I appreciate you.
Awesome. So first, tell me a little bit about like, when did you find your voice in poetry? Like, how did you decide that poetry was your thing?
In 2010 is when I actually started performing poetry. I've always written poetry since 1996. I've been in my little journal writing whatever I was feeling, what was happening, but I didn't speak about certain things that I was writing about. In 2008, someone read something, or I read something, they were like, this is good. And so I was like, oh, it's good. Oh, what is it? So then I started writing more and more and more. Like I said.
So even as a little girl, you always wrote poetry?
1996, I wasn't that little, but just saying. So I was a teenager. I was a teenager, I would just say. I was a teenager. My last year of high school is when I actually got more serious about it. I didn't perform until 2010. I got invited out and I started performing then, you know. 2010 is when a lot of things started happening. I didn't really have much of a voice, and then when I found it, I was like, oh, so this feels good. So I was like, this feels good, so I want other people to feel this. And so I just continued on my journey and just gradually evolved into who I am today. But I have a voice.
So when you say you didn't have much of a voice, how would you describe kind of like being in that place of not having a voice?
I grew up in a home full of domestic violence. You name it, I saw it. So my opinion didn't count, because the parents were going through something else, you know, they were going through their own thing. So I didn't have much of a voice. And when I did voice it, it really wasn't what they wanted to hear. So I kind of just went into my little shell and I said, okay, they don't want to hear it, I won't say anything. And
you come from a big family?
Well, you mean the household itself? Because I have an older sister and a younger sister. We're 9 years apart. So she kind of left home before everything, you know, transpired. I came from different, it's in my book.
Okay.
It's just
so long. You were a middle child.
So I'm a middle child on my mom's
big
side.
Space between your other siblings.
And 4 years apart from my younger sister.
Okay.
So we kind of went through different stages in this.
In your parents' relationship.
Right. It wasn't my dad, it wasn't my sister, that was a stepdad. So, but that was the stage in New York. I mean, there was something going on in New York with drugs and stuff like that. And then we came to Connecticut and still some more stuff. So, yeah, it didn't have much of a voice. No one wanted to hear it. And when I did say something, I was kind of penalized for it. So you kind of stop. You know what I mean? So when I did, I would write in code so that she wouldn't know what I was, because, you know, she was.
When you did poetry? Okay. So
she
ran your journal. So when she ran your journal, she was like, oh, what does that mean?
Oh, this looks like some words together. Okay, whatever. So that's what I did for the most part. So when I finally was able to express it, and people were like, you know what, I was going through that, and the way you said it kind of resonated with me, and that's what fueled me to keep doing it. Because if I'm helping someone, that's my field. I'm in the health field. So naturally, I like to help people. So if that's helpful to at least one person per poem, listen, I'm doing my job. So I was able to get my voice through poetry, and maybe someone else can, you know, so.
So what you said in 2010, you started performing it. Was that the first time that people outside of your circle of friends actually heard it?
Yeah.
Yeah? And what was that experience like?
Oh,
how old were you?
Boy, I was 2010. I was 29.
Okay.
And I wasn't. I'm sorry. I was 30 already.
Okay.
I was 30.
Tomato.
Whatever. But yeah, that was amazing. I was invited out by a very, very close friend of mine that her best friend was like into poetry. She was writing, she was performing, and I went to Hartford, and it was amazing. The first time I went, I didn't do anything because I was scared. I was just like, oh my God, these people, you know, like, I don't think I'm ready. And I purposely didn't bring my poem, and it wasn't memorized. I didn't.
Right. So she couldn't even make it.
She was like, you don't have it? Nope. She said, I told you what we were doing. Oh, sorry. Next time I went, I mean, I knew I was going to go do it, but it was so nerve-wracking that I had to have a glass of wine. It was just so, yes, I did. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. And I did it. And the reaction, I mean, the facial expressions, you can tell it resonates. You just tell.
Do you remember what that poem was about?
It was about domestic violence and about, the poem is called A Fool. It's in my book. And it's about, I was talking to my mother and saying, I'm not going to be like you. Basically, I choose not to be a fool. And it just talks about how she's showing me to show love and get love. And how she's showing me how to be treated, and it's wrong. You know, so I choose not to be like you, but I look so much like you because we look like, I look like her. So it was just like, I mirror you, but I don't want to mirror you. So I choose not to be a fool is like the ending, you know, the ending line to the poem, because that's basically what it was. I feel like she was being a fool and being in this relationship, but I know better now that, you know, battered woman syndrome is a real thing. Right. So like she didn't really want to, you know, but you know, then it was a release poem, and I read that one to her. She wasn't too happy about it. I said, this is the one because, you know, she was still alive. It's just like, which one did you do? And I told her which one I did, and I did it, and she's just like, huh. Like,
so what was it like when your mother first found out, like you were actually writing poetry? Like, did you ever read things to her before you start performing?
No. I didn't read her the old stuff. No. She doesn't know the old stuff, and the stuff that I put in the book, there's a lot of old stuff in there that she's never read. And my binder's this thick. I only gave you guys like this much of my old stuff in Broken Silence. Okay. Like, because I split it up the way I did, it's just like different stages in my life. I didn't want to have too much of anything in the book to kind of tell my story. No. I read her A Fool because she asked me to. Okay. Like, because she knew I was going. She even was like, go. Because 2010 is when she got sick on me. And she's just like, go. Okay. Go do it. Go recite. And I'm just like, I'm nervous. And she's just like, do it. And I did it. And I feel good about doing it. But she didn't like that poem very much. She was like, I remember the first time I sat in my car and I told her exactly how I felt. I was an adult with 2 kids already. And I still felt like a little kid about to tell her. And her feelings were so hurt. But I needed to say it to start the healing process, which I wasn't completely there yet. But that was a start for me, for her to know, you know, I know you didn't mean what you did, but it hurt. And I'm still trying to, you know, my idea of love distorted. I'm figuring it out now. Wow.
But you know what, you're right. A lot of people find themselves in both the position of being battered and being parents of battered children and being the children of battered parents. And I think that the idea that you can actually find release through words, even if the words can't at that moment be towards the people that may need to hear them. Do you think that, how do you see poetry as a way of voice of giving your feelings a voice? Like, is that the only thing that you write about, is like all personal things that you'd like to voice out?
Mostly, yes.
Okay.
That's the reason why I chose the name TruePoetry. I went from TruePoetry to Miss TruePoetry, and then I said, you know what? They need to know who I am as D TruePoetry because my name is Darlene, so I have to put that D in there just so they could distinguish.
Okay.
Yes, most of it is life experiences. I have written poems for events. Okay. I did the Martin Luther King. You know, they do it in Peabody. They do that every year. Okay. And I've written poems to go with that. You know. I do it for events sometimes, but it's difficult for me because I'm a personal writer, so I have to like find the personal connection. Right. Okay. So for that one, I did something about how women used to get their insides tampered with way back when. They took our insides out, they abortioned, or you know, stuff like that. So I took being a mother and kind of intertwined it with how would I have felt if that were happening to me. So so I always have to find the personal, because that's the only way when I dig in deep, that's what happens. You know, I find my own, even if I didn't go through it, how would I have felt if I had gone through it? So yeah, but I write all different kinds of poems. But for the most part, yeah, they're either personal for me or if I've seen it, you know, so it's not necessarily to me, but I've seen it somehow, some way.
So I always seem to view spoken word artists as people who have found or is finding their voice, right? So for somebody who can't seem to find their voice, those people who don't know how to speak up, how do you get from that, even if poetry is not your thing, how do you get from that point of feeling silence to actually expressing yourself?
It starts with listening, because even if that person doesn't want to express, they go to these open mics or these platforms where people are expressing themselves. Because even if they don't say anything, they're still processing it. They're still, because finding your voice doesn't always mean this. Because finding your voice can mean you're talking to yourself, you're internalizing what's going on. You're saying, you know what, I've been through stuff like that, or no, I haven't, but I can see that. So it starts with listening, I feel. Because when people say, well, I'm not ready to recite, well, come and listen, because you might find a piece that you can take home with you that'll help you write. And even if you don't express yourself to us, you're still starting to process within yourself, because it all starts there, I feel. So they don't have to get on the mic. They don't have to say anything per se, but if you take the information, you internalize, and maybe write something down, and then start changing things within yourself, whatever you need to change, if there needs to be a change, you know, and that's the process. So that's what I always tell people. You don't have, like me, I'm boisterous now, you know, but I wasn't always talkative. It's different from being boisterous and making an impact on people, because I'm always talking. To get in trouble for talking, my goodness. But actually having substance in talking about something, you know what I mean? Yeah. So
I'm the same way. I had a friend that was going through a hard time, and I was reading this thing that says, oh, if your friend is going through a hard time, it's okay for you to invite them to just sit in silence. And so I messaged her and I was like, if you ever want to just sit, I'm gonna be honest, we can't be silent, but we can talk about irrelevant stuff because I'm a talker.
There you go. That's real. That's real.
I can't invite you just to sit in silence, but you know, my contributions is we can talk about everything irrelevant, nothing serious. We can just laugh. We can talk about movie stars or whatever. I can't be silent. I don't do that. I tell people that's why I'm not good on Twitter.
No, I hear you.
I can't do nothing in 240 characters. What has helped me is the thread. Like today, I posted a whole thread. Like I didn't need to do more than 240 characters.
Seriously, when I first found that out, I was like, "What is this?" Going back on Facebook, I don't know what's happening here.
Right. But then, you know, it's also a really good point that you make about how it starts with listening, and you don't, in a social media obsessed culture now where people feel like they have to share everything, and sometimes it's oversharing. To really hear you say that sometimes it's really just about that internal conversation. You don't got to tell everybody.
No, you don't. There's a lot of stuff I don't post. People think Darlene posts everything. No, I don't. No, I don't. I don't post everything. You think so?
Yeah. I tell people that all the time.
I don't post everything. I've been enjoying the personal things even more so lately and posting less and less and less because the social media platform for me is pretty much social and for promotions. And I'll post things here and there because I'm excited, but those private moments.
How do you decide what is too private for you to actually share, whether it's published or getting on the stage and share? Do you have kind of like, where do you draw the line for yourself?
At this point, I'm trying not to because I'm needed to say everything as raw as I possibly can because there's people who need to hear it because, like I said, they're listening, they're internalizing, they're healing. So through my healing process, I've been expressing more personal things because I started with like a poem like A Hug, a poem like A Fool, and usually my poems are visual poems. I don't use the actual words that I want to tell you. Lately I have been, so it's like, this is not hypothetical, this is real. You know, this is real stuff. When do I decide? I mean, just depends on the environment. Where am I performing? What effect do I want to leave on the audience?
Do you ever get to a space and have one idea for a poem and then you're like, no, this space,
Totally. I'm just like, oh, I'll just do this generalized poem. And then I see and I listen to everything everybody's saying. And I'm like, especially if it's an open mic, it's like, oh, there's only 20 people as opposed to 50 that's here or whatever. It's an intimate setting. So I'll share a new poem because I'm always doing notes. And even if it's raw, even if it's unfinished, I'll share something like that if it's a smaller group of people, as opposed to if it's a large group of people. It's more now it's a show. I'm advertising. I'm going to do something for my book, or I'm going to do something I've memorized so they can see that I've got skills, because you never know who's in the audience. It's sad to say, but the industry I'm in, it's always opportunities. The person knows a person knows a person. But if it's intimate, I'll share more intimate things. I've done that, especially like Poets Realm is like my home. That's like, that's in Bridgeport. Okay. And Arnell started Poets Realm years ago. I forget if we're on the 17th year or whatever, but it's been going a long time. And he's in Florida, and Influence is out of New Haven, and he's running it right now. I ran it for a little bit, but I'm from Waterbury, single mom. It's difficult. Influence, he's got his family, he's got his wife, he's got his career, so he's in a better place than me to run something for someone else. Especially how far it was, and the advertisement and everything. And I had a lot of stuff going on, so it went from person to person, but Influence has it. And I mean, that place, usually I can share because it's every Wednesday. So it's more of a church. You know how people see church? That's how I see that, because it's just like, I don't go to church. So it's just like, that's like, I can express myself and people can express themselves. And like you said, the poems in my head, ones that I thought I was going to do, I'm not going to do, because it's like, it seems like a theme going on. So it's more like, it's like that. So that's
awesome. So I'm going to ask you to bless us with a poem. And if you are just tuning in, you're listening to WNHHLP 103.5 FM, New Haven's home for community radio. This is Mornings with Mubarakah. And we are live on TuneIn Radio as well as newhavenindependent.org. And today we are talking with the State of Connecticut Beat Poet Laureate, TruePoetry. Who is going to bless us with a poem from her new book, Breaking Silence.
Okay. So this poem is called, this is my Poetry Matters poem. I have the Poetry Matters movement, and I wrote a poem to go with it because I feel like words matter. And so this poem goes into detail about words matter. I call it a poem. I'm words waiting to be read, waiting to be said, waiting to be felt, hair raising, flushed cheeks. I'm that beat that moves your feet, invading senses that sleep, deep, deep, deep within the lines unsaid, between the crack of a smile, that twinkle in the eye, a hungered soul, that moment untold. I'm nothing more than words unsaid. Recite me. Speak me into existence. Form sounds that move mountains, inspire masses. Memorize me, so I'm embedded in. Etched like tattooed skin. Say me loudly, say me softly. Say me into nothingness. Make me into something. I want to be something. I'm that thought sitting in your mind. Sound wave so intense, rolls against tongue. taste like everlasting tomorrows, resting on fortune-telling lips. I'm the past, present, and future, the moments missed, time spent. I'm possibilities floating in the wind, on the air, flooding your lungs. Exhale me, feel me surround you like baptism. I'm water flowing down your face, dripping from your chin. You're glowing, glistening, covered in haikus, smelling like rhymes and metaphors for I love yous, sunk into your pores. I'm in you, hand to chest, heart racing faster and faster. I'm the breath you catch, that thought you can't forget. Pain like paper cuts, splintered fingertips, write truth. I'm a poem living within all of you. Thank you.
That was beautiful. That is so powerful as to not just the way that it flows, but so powerful to really think about words in that manner, and so relevant, like when you think about how important, particularly today, right? We have, everybody want to say something,
right? But
to know that it is, and to be reminded that it is so pertinent to like every part of how we express ourselves, how we live, how we feel.
That's right.
That's awesome.
Everyone is a living, breathing poem. Think about it.
So
your story.
Even for people who feel like, oh, I can't do poetry, how do you describe them as a poet?
Well, your story is a poem that you haven't said yet, basically. You didn't say it, but you are a poem. Because every time I have a conversation with you, or you're getting to know me, I'm telling you my story. And poems are not what people think they are. Write me this and that. No, that's not poems. Because song is poem, rap is poem. Having a conversation, I feel like that's poetry. Like everything is poetry to me.
So even a conversation is poetry?
Yes, it can be. I have people who speak poetically all the time. It doesn't have to rhyme, right? So your story is a poem. You are a walking poem. When people get to know you, you got to think about that. I'm special. I'm a poem. People are waiting to hear my story. That's what we do when we get to know each other.
I like that. I really like that. So you talked about that was your signature piece for Poetry Matters. Just tell us what Poetry Matters is.
Poetry Matters is everything I'm doing. It falls under the umbrella of Poetry Matters movement because I feel like anyone can be a part of it. But by you wearing it, it's like it shows I matter. So, like where we're talking about this matters, that matters, I matter. Instead of me saying I matter, it's more like Poetry Matters, which means we matter. Because since I see everyone as a poem, see everyone as poetry, beautiful. So it's like, this is the movement, like we matter. And this is, the arts matters. Like it falls into all of that because, arts is not, people are kind of getting it now that arts matters, but we're still not there yet. And, we need that part. We're important, so we should wear it proudly. Poetry matters. Words matter.
So the word poetry is just taken as people.
Right.
People matter.
People matter. Yes. And words matter.
Your story matters.
And your story matters. Everything tied into one. So that's my movement. I want to make sure that people understand that, you can be a part of Poetry Matters. Why? Because you're important. You're important. You can be a part of it. Poetry Matters is not just me, not just you. It's everyone who wants to be a part of it. And I'm doing so many different things. It just falls under the umbrella. Because people say, well, darling, I was at a meeting, Make 'em Believe meeting, and everything is like, well, we can put poetry. And one of them was like, look, listen, everything is not about poetry. I'm like, but it is though, you don't understand. But it is. I was in my feelings. I was like.
You like me with exercise. I'm like, exercise is the cure to everything.
Artist, I'm an artist, I'm sensitive. So I was just like, you serious? I sat there in silence for like 3 minutes, and that's hard for me. So I was just like, it's not poetry. Found the little avenue again. I was like, see, told you, put poetry in there. And they looked at me like, is she serious? It is what it is.
It's a movement, get on board.
Hello. Get with it.
So under your Poetry Matters movement, you have several things that you do. All right, so y'all gotta hold on because you gotta listen to all of this stuff. Because this is a busy woman. When she says she is going to start a movement, she is the movement train coming. So, Love Jones.
The Love Jones experiment.
Okay.
Is something out of Bridgeport that I got invited out, and now I'm a part of it because I was invited to just be at every single one. We're gonna take it from city to city. Right now, it's in Bridgeport. The man that runs it is Andre Turner, and that's what it is. It's music. It's like the Love Jones movie with the music and the poetry together. He ties in live music. He has a DJ.
So the person is doing poetry, and then the DJ adds the music to what they're doing.
Live band in the background. The DJ is for the after party. So live band behind you, and you kind of start your poem, and they just vibing with the poem, and they're like, I just tell them, just follow me, because I'm not used to it. Now I'm writing poetry for the event, specifically with a song in mind. So this is what I'm doing. This is a wonderful experience because I get to do poetry in a different light and say, I love the Love Jones, but I'm really going to do it. My last one, I sent you a clip. I'm singing and doing poetry. It's amazing. It was amazing. I was like, oh, I'm not half bad. I can hold a tune.
So if you like music and poetry, if you like those two arts together,
it's beautiful.
Then and so tell us where this is.
That one is Grill 2 in Bridgeport.
Okay.
It doesn't have a specific day. We don't have a date for the next one, but just be on the lookout. If they follow me, I will post it. Okay. I will definitely post it.
All right. And Funny Bone.
Oh, Funny Bone.
Comedy and poetry. All right. Now, I love comedy. We've gone to Funny Bone several times to see different comedians. Apparently, I went on the wrong night because I didn't get to see you open up.
Oh,
so, how did that come about?
I hit up a promoter, and he, someone told me about him, and I hit him up, and I said, listen, I'm a poet. I do this, I do that. He said, I'm sorry, I do comedy right now. But if I hear something, I'll let you know. That was it. Saved his number. Called me back so long that I had to take the name, put it on Facebook, and put a face to it. That's how bad it was, right?
That's how long it's been.
So I'm like, his name is Cameo, and he's got this killer cam comedy series, but he's coming from New York. He moved to Hartford. He started it at the Funny Bone. What came to mind? Myself. So it was just going to be all comedians, and he just wanted me to open up. I'm sure what he wanted to do was get Connecticut people involved in what was going on, which is fine, because I'm a promoter. I totally get it. I showed out so bad that he was like, so the next one, right? I was like, really? Yay, And I was like, oh, and he invited me back out. I was on the flyer this time, and it's just amazing. And we're on the third one now, May 24th. There's no work. It's the Memorial Day weekend. Okay. So it's May 24th. My birthday's in May, so awesome. I'll be showing out,
Okay.
This time I'll be closing when someone else is opening. Okay. So it'll be poetry, comedy, and teacher poetry closes out. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. May 24th.
Awesome.
So,
and Poetic Haven.
Poetic Haven is something that was offered to 3 poets. Deja offered it to Influence, who's out of New Haven, Rashawn, who's out of New Haven, and myself, who's out of Waterbury. I don't know how I keep getting involved, right? I'm just everywhere.
They just want the best.
So they invited us, so we've collaborated, put our heads together, and we're going to start it. National Poetry Month is April. Okay. So we're going to start it the first Tuesday in April, and it's going to be every other Tuesday after that. Okay. Again, I'll be posting flyers. I'll be posting addresses. The place is called Poetic Haven. It's a new spot.
Is it a physical place?
It's a physical place. It's Poetic Haven, so why not leave it with the name? So it's Poetic Haven, and we're just going to put open mic at the end of it. So no confusion, no other names. The name is perfect.
Okay. Is the space just a space that's dedicated to poetry?
Yes. It's going to be having different arts there. They're going to be having plays there. They've already had a play. They'll be having different things there that has to do with the arts. The owner just wants the arts back in the community. And it's not in a, it's one of those communities where they really don't have it. I forgot the street address. I'm sorry. I tried to look it up. I didn't have it. But yeah, it's going to be, it's the next thing in New Haven.
Awesome. And that's going to be every Wednesday?
That's going to be, it's going to be every other Tuesday starting the first Tuesday in April, National Poetry Month.
Every other Tuesday starting the first Tuesday in April.
I'll send you everything.
Awesome. Or people can follow you how?
TruePoetry on any social media site.
DEE.
And True Poetry, the 2 words, but just together.
Okay. On Facebook?
Facebook.
Instagram?
Twitter. Everything.
You got that new TikTok thing?
I don't do the TikTok thing either. I have a TikTok with my kids.
I'm trying to figure it out. I
have a TikTok called Yaya's Galaxy because my child is so out there that the TikTok is more about her because she's just like so cute. And she's got her YouTube I manage all these pages. Like, and on Instagram I have the GSP and Poetry Matters Movement on Instagram and Facebook. So if they wanted to.
We didn't talk about that.
Join.
GSP.
Oh, GSP
Tell
is
me
my
about
baby.
GSP.
So GSP started 2 years ago.
Grown and Sexy Poetry, y'all.
Yes, it started as Grown and Sexy Poetry and Jazz. Okay. And, it started then. I got a group of people together that I thought would be great additions. And I mean, some people got replaced along the way. But for the most part, it's all family. We're all family. We all love each other. And that is Grown and Sexy Poetry and Jazz. I wanted live music, kind of like the Love Jones experiment. But it's expensive for a band. So I dropped off the jazz and did Grown and Sexy Poetry. And it's been that ever since.
And what is it exactly?
It's right. It has always been an open mic. We're into the second year and I've transformed it into a showcase only because it's so fancy. We get dressed up, we have music and we have poetry and we have songs. So it's pretty much what it has been is pretty much an open mic to all forms of art, which still is open to all forms of art. But I think I've made it more controlled where it's a showcase of people. For the anniversary on March 12th would be the Grown and Sexy anniversary. It's going to be in Waterbury. It's called In the Cut. And
is it the same place every month or you move around?
Right now we are moving around, but In the Cut right now, that's where it's going to be March 12th. What my vision is it'll take more time, but right now I don't have a second date for it. I'm looking to do it different seasons, like right now in March for the anniversary, in the summertime and before it gets too cold. Because it's going to be more of a show as opposed to just anybody can get on the mic. You have to kind of get situated and get your slot and everything else. So it's open to everything.
Get screened.
Right. It has to. I got to go through the team.
I've been to poetry events where people were not screened, and I'm sitting there like.
Right, because it's an open mic usually. So I screen them. I try to give a little bit of everything. I'm going to have a violinist during intermission. I'm going to have multiple poets with different styles, but they're all amazing. And then I'm going to have a singer. I'm going to have a rapper. I'm going just a whole bunch of things because poetry matters, right? So, so we're going to have everything. And that one is on Eventbrite. And we're getting really close. It's next week. That one's on a Thursday. Yeah.
Babs Rawls Ivy, who has a show here on WNHH every morning, does something called Jazz Rare. It is a live band once a month that she has at various locations. So maybe we can hook the two of you up. That would be great to have a little Grown and Sexy Poetry before the Jazz Rare event. It is she just curates a band and the community meets. They've been, I think the last one was at a museum. The one before that was on the rooftop of the community foundation. So she gets these spaces and have live bands, jazz bands.
Oh, that would be nice.
Yeah, so I have to, we have
let's link. I love collaboration.
That would be awesome. Look at me, I'm playing the people's stuff and everything on the show.
That would be wonderful. I like that idea.
I love you, Babs. Yes. So tell me, so we're coming towards the end of the show, but I really would like to hear your view on how poetry really affects activism, being able to voice in this, in where we are in our culture. It seems that now more than ever, people need to tell their stories. We are in a very divided society right now. And I believe that that division comes from people not understanding one another, not knowing each other's stories, and that creates more division. I see spoken word and poetry and song and all of these forms of art as a way of conveying your story. I've seen so many, even like visual artists, right? You can kind of look at a picture and you really do physically feel the story that the picture is telling. With words, you really do visualize kind of the story that those words are strung together and tell. How do you see poetry, and your poetry in particular, affecting the way that we interact in our culture?
Because I tell my story, I'm sure I'm not the only one that has that story. How do I see it impacting?
Yeah. Do you? So I guess the better way for me to phrase that question
like,
is,
yes, don't let me.
We be here for 3 hours.
Don't let me.
Be like, and the fifth of our series is no.
Don't let me.
So I guess the way I can rephrase it is that, do you write and see yourself as kind of like affecting a larger part of a movement, or really you just want to tell your story and your experiences?
Both.
Okay.
I feel like both, because in telling my story in my little comfort bubble, I am going to affect other people. That is my purpose, to voice it, because then I touch people's lives in a way that no one else can. I know my gift. My voice is my gift. My cadence, my tone, everything. It affects people in a certain way, and I get it now. And even without giving you a poem, I can have a conversation and you'll never forget me, only because of the connection we make. So I feel like both, because in that, people can tell their story as well. You know what I mean? Because we all have a story to tell. So I feel like both. That makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. What's the bigger impact that you hope to make through telling your story?
Help people.
Help people how?
Help people heal from any trauma. Yeah, because I feel like I'm healing from trauma, and this is how I am healing from trauma, and I feel like it can help anyone, because even when we don't consider it, because when people say trauma, it has to be like something, it doesn't have to, like trauma, we all have trauma, different kinds of trauma. When people say trauma, it's just like, no, it wasn't the most terrible thing. No, but we have that baggage with us. We can all heal from it. It makes you feel lighter. So that's my mission, to help people heal. Maybe be that one thing that they're like, you know what? And they start processing it. Poem that makes someone process something. I love that. Because now I'm in your journey, whether you know it or not. Like, I've affected you. You know what I mean? So that's the main goal, is to help people. That's my thing. I love helping people. And if I can help people that way, perfect. So yeah, healing.
So before we end the show, I'm going to ask you to do two things for me. Tell people again where they can find you online, where they can find you offline. When is your next performance? And then will you close us out with a poem?
Oh, another poem? Sure.
So where can they find you?
All social media sites, TruePoetry, via Instagram, Facebook, whatever. My personal page is my government name, which is Darlene, but I have a fan page. Everything has a fan page, TruePoetry. I make it easy to find me. It's not hard to find me. I have the GSP page. I have the Poetry Matters page, whichever, follow all of them if you want. And offline, my next performance.
Yes.
That's what you said. My next event is GSP, Grown and Sexy Poetry, March 12th. That's next week. That's my next event.
Where is it?
That one is 715 Lakewood Road in Waterbury. It's called In the Cut. The doors open at 8. We're doing all pre-sales through Eventbrite or Cash App. You have to contact me. Okay. What else? That one, the one after that would be the Funny Bone, which is May 24th. That's the two biggest things happening right now, like my major events happening.
Okay, awesome. So thank you for joining us. You have been listening to Mornings with Mubarakah on WNHHLP, New Haven Independent.org, and TuneIn Radio. And we'd like to close out with TruePoetry.
A poem. Okay, I'll do the hug one. The hug one is very lovey-dovey. I need a hug, a real hug, like the kind that makes you melt. I want to feel the buckle of his belt. I want to smell the warmth of his skin, feeling it all around me like sunbeams. I want a hug so deep, so sweet, I get a toothache just from the memory. I want a hug so filling that I never have to eat again. I want a hug that'll never end. I want a hug with heights of mountains. I want to feel it deep within, moving my feet beneath me to the depths of the earth's core where my heart beats. I want a hug with all gas and no brakes that sends me flying carelessly, pure emotion. I want a hug so full of passion it sends impulses of commotion, making me feel brave. Brave enough to say words you don't hear today. Words like please and thank you. Please hold me tight and thank you for never letting go. Frozen in his arms where I belong. His head rests over mine. His hands caress my spine. As he holds on tightly, he's happy to see me. Wrapped around me with pure honesty and understanding. His hug makes me whole again. His hug keeps out the cold, and his hug will heal those wounds of being battered and bruised. In fact, even though I know not of his great embrace, still I wait. I need a hug from my soulmate, so our souls can dance and our hearts can sing, and I can take my place back in his ribs, caged in his chest, embedded in his skin, as he and I, like tattooed tribal signs. For I was made to be not just in his arms, but inside, all the way deep. I want to be his heartbeat, the only place I feel truly at peace. Beloved heartbeats, like heavenly harps vibrating through my soul. His hug is my home. That's it.
That was awesome.